Hey guys, Josh here, and I am super excited for all of you because today is everyone's favorite day at the gym, chest day. Today, I want to talk about the anatomy of our chest, as well as a few do's and don'ts. This way, when you're at the gym, you'll be able to get the best workout possible. So let's get started. Oh, chest day. Everyone loves chest day. Without fail, people will go out of their way to make it to the gym on this glorious occasion. Sadly, people don't seem to have a proper understanding of their pec anatomy, which leads them to frequently making mistakes, not only costing progress in the gym, but also putting their body in compromising positions that can drastically increase the risk of injury. So let's take a look at our anatomy. So the structure of the chest is fairly straightforward. You essentially have three areas on your pec, and all three of these areas attach into the bicipital groove of your humerus, which basically is your arm, and they attach right through there on your arm. Now the first section that we're gonna look at is our upper pec, and that starts up here, and it's called your clavicular head because it attaches at your collarbone and it runs down and attaches to your humerus. The second area, or the middle, attaches at your sternocostal, which is your sternum, and that attaches here, runs straight across, and attaches into your humerus. And then the last one is your lower pec, and that's also called your abdominal head, and that runs up and attaches into your humerus. Now, we also have a pec minor, which is located underneath the pec major, but its function is to move your scapula or your shoulder blade, and this is more for our shoulder health, so we'll talk about your pec minor in another video. Now that we know where our pec starts and finishes, one of the most important aspects of training our chest is to perform exercises that follow the pathways of these fibers. For example, if we want to hit our lower pec, we want to increase the distance between our origin and insertion points. And one of the best exercises to do this for the lower pec is the dip. When we do dips, we want to focus on getting as much distance between our humerus and our sternum as possible. If you're going to do mini or partial reps, make sure that they're at the bottom of the dip instead of the top. For our upper pec, both incline barbell and incline dumbbell presses are fantastic to hit the upper pecs. However, I personally prefer dumbbell presses for making sure my shoulders stay safe. Now, the same concept applies. Make sure that you are getting as much distance as possible between the origin and insertion to efficiently create those micro tears. One of the key fundamentals that people often overlook when it comes to training their chest is crossing the midplane, or the center of the body. While pressing exercises are amazing for the strong majority of your workout, when it comes to truly getting the maximum out of your chest, you want to have at least one or two exercises that cross the midplane. The most common example of this would be a cable crossover, where you have one arm over the other for each rep. One of my personal favorite examples of crossing the midplane is a push-up, where your hand comes across the center of your body and touches the opposite hand. The reason why I love this is you can add a resistance band for increased tension for each rep. Now that we have a fundamental understanding of our pec anatomy, let's take a look at the three most common mistakes of chest day. So the first do and don't that we want to talk about is one of the most common issues I see, and that's people's shoulder position. So we're going to start off by looking at how our shoulders should be, and then I'll explain why it's dangerous for if they're not in this position.
So, move this so you can see what I'm talking about. Fix the mic here.
So when we're looking at having our back and shoulders in the proper position, we want our shoulder blades to be retracted and pushed down. This causes stability in our shoulders, which is what we want when we're pushing a lot of weight, because instability will lead to injury. So again, what we don't want to do is have our shoulders push forward, because it pushes our scapulas out, which causes instability. So again, we want to bring them back, push them down, and this is going to be the position of our shoulder blades when we're doing our presses. And I'll show you what it looks like from the side. So let me show you an example of what it might look like with our shoulders rolled forward opposed to back and retracted. So we're going to bring our dumbbells up, And we'll start off with our shoulders rolled forward. As you come down with the dumbbells, it's gonna automatically cause some anterior rotation in your humerus, or forward tilting your shoulder, which causes instability. And as we know, instability leads to injury. So we'll do a couple reps with our shoulders forward so you can see what it looks like. You see my shoulders are rolling forward, and that's a no-no. So what we want to do is get our shoulder blades back and retracted, and we'll be able to establish stability in our shoulders, get us some good solid presses in. That way we keep our shoulders happy and healthy. So the second do and don't that I want to talk about is dumbbell flies on a bench. Now these can be either incline or decline, but personally they are my least favorite exercise. I encourage you not to do them, and let me explain why. So when we want to do an exercise, we want to work the muscle. And we know we work the muscle by creating as much distance between the origin and insertion point. So if we're doing a press, where's my origin and insertion point? Basically there to there, right? If I'm doing my fly, where's my origin and insertion point? Well, they almost haven't changed distances. So that tells us that there's not much more extra tension on our chest. Okay, but where's all that extra tension going? It's going to our shoulders. And unfortunately, there's nothing to keep our shoulders safe. So as we're coming down, once we pass parallel, once you get down here, there's nothing but tension on your shoulders. That can cause impingement, that can cause injury, that can cause tears. And so I am a huge advocate of not doing these. But I don't want to leave you hanging, so let me show you a safe way to do some dumbbell flies. We'll get the bench out of the way. Now for these, the floor is our friend. Why? Because the floor keeps our shoulders safe. So with these ones, we're gonna focus on negatives. We're up in our fly position. We're gonna come down with a nice slow 3 to 5 count, and the floor stops us. The floor keeps our shoulders from getting too much tension specifically on them. So we'll go ahead, bend our arms, push back up, 3, 4, 5, bend them in, push them up, 2, 3, 4, 5, and push them up. And that is the only safe way I would ever recommend doing dumbbell flies. So the last one we see is something that everybody's witnessed at the gym, and that's bouncing the bar off your chest, as well as lifting your butt up off the bench. I'll show you what it looks like. So people will get into this position, get their weight up, bring the weight down, bounce it off their chest, stick their butt way up in the air. Bounce it off their chest, butt goes way up in the air. And the reason why people do reps this way is, one, typically it means the weight is way too heavy for you and you need to cut back and focus on your form and keeping your body safe. Now, a couple reasons this is extremely dangerous is, one, added tension on your lumbar spine can cause a bulge disc. Now, it's not very common for them to bulge inwardly, but if you think of your spine, my hand's like vertebrae. In between the vertebrae, there is a jelly-like disc called an intervertebral disc. And when you put lots of tension on it, it basically squeezes that jelly out of whichever direction is applying the force. So that's why you have to be careful with all that extra tension on your lower back. Now, the other issue it can cause is probably one of my favorite words, and it comes from overextension of the back, and that is spondylolisthesis. And basically what that is, your top spinal process is going to be rubbing on the lower one, and it'll chip away at the top spinal process, basically creating a fracture in your lower back. And nobody wants that. So if you're gonna bench with a barbell, which I don't always recommend just because of our shoulder health, we wanna keep our shoulders happy and healthy. We wanna make sure that we talked about before, that our shoulder blades are pinched, pushed down. Make sure that your butt stays nice and flat. Now, a little arch in your back is perfectly acceptable as long as your butt stays on the bench. We'll come down. Nice pause. Push up. Come down. Nice pause. Push up. And there you have it, how to bench safely. Why can't I say that sentence?
I don't know. Okay. Sounds right. Just the last one, you sounded almost frustrated.